For more analysis, we're joined from New Delhi by Upamanyu Basu, Professor of Political Science at Manav Rashana International University, and from Cairo by Dr. Mohammed Osman, International Relations Specialist. Welcome to In Depth, and we start off with Mr. Basu. Following the April 22nd attack in Pahalgam that killed 26 people, Prime Minister Modi vowed retaliation against those giving militants safe haven. How does the Indian government justify its strikes in Pakistan administrated Kashmir as proportionate and within international norms, sir?
Right. First of all, thank you for having me. It's actually difficult to answer this question in a way that it seems like India's stance is taken as the first aggressor, because, as you rightly pointed out, it's a response to something that happened in Pahalgam. And Pakistan, for a very long time, has used what we call as sub-conventional methods of using terrorist wings in order to allege its involvement in Kashmir and do perpetration crimes in Kashmir. The problem at this point of time is that what Indian government had already promised, that this is not something coming as a surprise. It was the statement came out right after the Pahalgam terror attacks that there will be an appropriate response, and Prime Minister Narendra Modi gave the Indian army the full-fledged flexibility to decide what course of action will take place, and the Indian army responded with Operation Sindoor just last night. So it is appropriate because, if I can answer in this way, that Pakistan has used terrorism for a very long time. And it is totally the problem of Pakistan that right now it needs to address and acknowledge its illegal involvement in being a safe haven for terror attacks. Even right now, you see, why is the house of Jaish-e-Mohammed chief in Pakistan? This is not a question that comes up. Why was Osama bin Laden found in Pakistan? This is also not a question that unravels any analysis. These are the tough questions that people need to answer. And with our intelligence reports that came up, the plan was done by Jaish-e-Mohammed militants and terror groups. So it is an appropriate action. If somebody attacks your house, what is the appropriate action at that point of time? So at this point of time, India has responded back in what it considers as appropriate. Now, what is appropriate in this order is a philosophical question, but this is something, and the way Indian citizens have also lauded it in their social media accounts and the way it has been treated, the way India has, after the terror attacks, have very dignifiedly addressed what it has done, what kind of a very restricted attack and a very, very constrained attack. This is the least that an army like Indian Army can do. This is the least, I'm repeating it, this is the least attack that can happen after such a horrific terror attack where civilians were massacred. And here the response is that few buildings have been blasted off where terror groups operate. So I think it is appropriate enough.
Mr. Osman, India says the strikes were aimed at what it called terrorist camps, while Pakistan accuses Delhi of violating its sovereignty. Sir, from your own perspective and your narrative in this context, while Pakistan accuses Delhi of violating its sovereignty, is Pakistan considering military restraint, or does it view a symmetrically military response as necessary for deterrence? And do you expect further escalation given the fact that both countries are nuclear powers, sir?
Thank you for having me, Rana.
Always our pleasure, Dr. Osman, to have you with us.
Pleasure is mine, and greetings to you and to your dear guest and the honorable audience. I'm afraid that we are poised towards further escalation between India and Pakistan. The escalation we are witnessing right now is almost unprecedented, maybe even since 1971, even during the Kargil Wars in 1999, which was a border conflict between both countries that went on for a few months. No such missile attacks were ever carried out inside Pakistan proper, or such a retaliation by the Pakistani side, as it is expected. Of course, a Pakistani retaliation is expected. The Pakistanis have, Prime Minister Shahbaz Sharif has vowed to retaliate. The Pakistani military said that they will retaliate, and they even said that the downing of Indian aircraft and the shelling and the bombardment of Indian controlled towns and areas on the Indian side of the line of control in Kashmir. This the Pakistanis described as defensive measures or acts of self-defense, and that they will engage in a larger retaliation that is proportionate to that of India. And India, for its part, says that it has or alleges that it is targeting terrorism infrastructure. And I have a few qualms with these Indian claims. Does Pakistan support militant groups in Kashmir like Lashkar-e Taiba and Jaish-e-Mohammed and others? Yes, they do. We have enough evidence to suggest that the Pakistanis engage in supporting such militant and terrorist organizations
Dr.
who were.
Osman, is this what just Mr. Basu is mentioning about Osama bin Laden, which came out of Pakistan?
Yes, I'm about to get to my point, because even though Pakistan
Sorry
supports
to
terrorism,
interrupt, sir. Sorry.
yeah, so it's all right, it's all right. It doesn't Pakistan,
So
yes,
you're
support.
okay with what Mr. Basu was mentioning
No,
or
no, I'm
stating?
not. No, I'm not. I'm not. I'm saying yes, Pakistan maybe supports terrorism. However, that does not justify violating Pakistani sovereignty in this way, because the strikes yesterday were not limited to the disputed region of Kashmir, which is recognized as a disputed region by the international community, not as a part of India. And also, Pakistan does not claim sovereignty or ownership of Kashmir. So if it's within the prism of the clashes, very far away from Kashmir. So no, this is a very severe escalation, and also it is a violation of Pakistani sovereignty in accordance with the UN Charter, and it also targeted civilian infrastructure. Mosques and religious seminaries were targeted. 26 civilians have died in these attacks. Maybe militants were harbored in these areas. I'm not suggesting that they weren't. We do not have evidence. India did not provide any evidence, and Pakistan certainly will not provide any evidence to that effect. However, that does not justify the targeting of civilian infrastructure. And on the other hand, India is not so innocent either. India has a history of supporting militant terrorist organizations inside Pakistan, primarily the secessionist movements in Balochistan, which carry out incessant terrorist attacks against Pakistan as well. So the way to resolve this is through diplomacy and actual dialogue for the settlement of the Kashmir conflict, which has been lingering in the background for over 78 years, and also through a constructive dialogue. However, it seems that the Indian government of Prime Minister Narendra Modi, this nationalistic government, wants to take advantage of the situation in order to solidify its grip over the Indian controlled parts of Kashmir. We all know that Kashmiri autonomy has been abolished by Prime Minister Modi in 2019, and that Kashmir is basically living under a de facto state of martial law. And egregious violations of human rights happen over there. And the Pakistanis are not innocent either. They engage in many human rights violations against the Kashmiris inside their own areas of control as well. So nobody is innocent. But trying to turn this into a conflict in order to the Indian government thinks that it can engage in a limited military confrontation through which it can score a media victory in order to increase Prime Minister Modi's popularity and the of Bharati Janata, so to solidify his own internal control and his increasingly authoritarian form of government. I think this is a very dangerous escalation. Both sides are guilty. Pakistan should stop supporting militant organizations and jeopardizing Indian stability, and India should never engage in an act of war against Pakistan. Suspending the Indus Waters Treaty is an egregious violation of international law. It is basically committing hydraulic genocide, an attempt of hydraulic genocide against the people of Pakistan. So it's unacceptable. this exaggerated escalation can cause an actual confrontation that nobody wants. India does not want a confrontation. Pakistan does not want a total war either. However, the trajectory they are taking right now is pushing them forward to a full-scale confrontation. And as you mentioned, Rana, these are nuclear powers. So now we should tread very carefully when we enter these very dangerous zones.
Mr. Basu, India described its action as measured, responsible, and designed to be non-escalatory, while Pakistan calls it an unprovoked act of war. How does India assess the risk of regional escalation given Pakistan's vow to respond, sir?
Right. First of all, brilliant points made by the other panelists. Some of I cannot really to because I don't
Mr.
think there is a
Osman and Mr. Basu, of course, you're together and you have the right to answer each other. If you want to discuss anything, we're open to this.
Yeah, that's I'm actually thankful that you're open to that. Actually, there is no Pakistani analyst here, so I'm the only Indian one. So I can just there are some points that he's also agreeing, and I'm thankful that somebody is agreeing in international media, where the allegation that terrorists are harbored in Pakistan, it's something that it's agreed, right? With respect to India's actions in Balochistan, the intelligentsia, some of these are, if there are reports, we're happy to discuss this. If there are literature available to it, happy to discuss it. But again, the same question that comes is that what the question was is that is it unprovoked or not, whether the action was unprovoked. By default, when there is a terror attack happening and the militants are getting trained from a different country, is it unprovoked? That is the first question, a counter question to the question itself. The second aspect is if it is an attack on Pakistan's sovereignty, the attack that happened right now from the Indian side is an attack on Pakistan's sovereignty. What is the overall understanding of sovereignty here? In international law, can a country allow harboring terrorism and being a safe haven for terror groups, and not just for, and the panelists also agreed that this has not happened just today or tomorrow. It has happened for years and decades. So what does international norm or treaty talk about harboring terrorism? The second question about like there was an agreement that maybe terrorists were there in the mosque, maybe they weren't, but there is a sense that we have no clue at this point of time whether the buildings had terrorists harboring within them or not, right? So when there is an attack coming from a particular and a response attack coming from a country like India, how many elections did Pakistan have? If India is a democracy and India has a nationalistic, quote unquote, Hindutva oriented party, how many, this party came purely out of elections. So if it is a party that some international agencies are uncomfortable with, it is coming totally from a democratic process. How many elections did Pakistan have after its independence? How many times military dictatorship were ruled? Even today, if you see, after the reaction coming from Asif Munir, the entire attack was perpetrated. So is there silence in the international community about that? What is the role of the Pakistani army chief in attacks or even in the terror networks that happens there? What is the role of ISI? Will there be a complete shush in this analyzing this particular angle to it? And lastly, the conversation of Indus Water Treaty. How many times India wanted a review meeting to happen in Indus Water Treaty? When India decides to suspend the Indus Water Treaty as a response to the horrific terror attacks, then suddenly the international community is interested on the norms that suggest that this treaty cannot be violated or suspended. But this treaty can be suspended according to international norms if there is change of circumstances. Can a country harboring terrorism, attacking innocent civilians, can that not be
Sir, we
justified as
shouldn't be
suspension of
suspending
operations?
treaties that we've
Yes.
already did and agreed upon between countries. Mr. Osman, do you want to answer or do you want to reach a point that Mr. Basu touched now?
Yes, I would love to comment on the very good points Mr. Basu has made. I'm not questioning any of the facts he mentioned. However, I do disagree with the justifications. This does not justify the Indian, again, violation of Pakistani sovereignty. This is an act of war. If some terrorists in some country launch an attack against my country, then I should not engage directly in an act of war that can be to the detriment of this country and to even my own, especially that both countries are nuclear powers. I never questioned Indian democracy by any means. Indian democracy is much healthier than Pakistani democracy, but at the end of the day, both are with their faults. I'm just describing what many of my Indian friends who are not big fans of Prime Minister Modi are saying. Many Indian analysts and respected analysts are saying that this part of this is for political gains inside India. I'm not trying to simmer it down to that. However, it is part of the picture. Also, with regards to the Indus Water Treaty, calling for a review is something, suspending the treaty and depriving the people of Pakistan, or attempting to deprive them from their water needs, is something else. Reviewing a treaty, and by the way, treaties are made to be applied and for countries to comply with, not to question and unilaterally cancel. Because on the other hand, what the Pakistanis did, which is equally dangerous, by the way, they suspended the similar agreement, the ceasefire agreement. So escalation is going both ways over here. However, I think that dialogue is a way more effective way to deal
Dr.
with.
Osman and Mr. Basu, do you foresee dialogue and diplomacy taking place at this point as we talk, when there's obvious escalation taking place on both sides, and we're on the verge of a real a war? I don't know. I don't want to mention, but I'm asking you: could you read a third world war coming up?
Questions for me?
Both of you, sir.
Okay, can I will answer first if Mr. Basu would allow me.
Okay, Dr. Rahman.
Yes, I think that a war between India and Pakistan, even though both countries really do not want a war, but war is imminent. Clashes are ongoing on the border. Pakistan will most likely launch a missile attack against India. India will retaliate, and there is a very concerning statement that was made by the Indian government today, which said that Operation Sindoor, which is the name of this military operation, this is only phase one of the operation, which means that there will be a phase two. So that means that India will carry out more attacks inside Pakistan, as if the situation needs any more fuel to be added to the fire. And on the other hand, Pakistan is not acting with restraint. Pakistan shot down some Indian jets, they shelled border towns. I think if they restrain themselves and refrain from engaging in any further escalation, there might be a chance of a calm and some sort of de-escalation scheme. However, it doesn't seem that we are heading that way, and the key problem here that is the main cause of that is the absence of any international role in trying to mediate a ceasefire. The United States seems to be open or tolerant towards an Indian attack on Pakistan. If anything,
the United States and Israel both. Mr.
yes, but I mean, Israel is not effective, but the U.S. is. China, of course, very concerned. However, they are an ally of Pakistan, a historical. I don't want to say foe, but they do have their major disagreements with India, so they are not a valid mediator. The Europeans are completely absent, and the Russians, even though they have good relations with both sides, it's clear that they lean towards the Indian side. So, and of course, the entire world is preoccupied with the conflict in Ukraine, the trade wars, the conflict in the Middle East. So no one is really trying to do anything to contain this conflict, which could be very detrimental to international peace and stability.
Mr. Basu, I'll be back again, Dr. Osman. Mr. Basu, your take, sir?
Yeah, actually, I agree with every point at this point of time that, see, the possible escalation, I don't want to be the devil's advocate or the pessimist analyst here, but I have to be realist at this point of time. When two equally, I think, military-wise, I think India has a stronger military in that respect. there is a theory in international relation, we call it the ripeness theory. It suggests that two parties have to reach a point of complete exhaustion in order for negotiations to happen. This is not stage one, as even Indian government is escalating. This is not even stage one. So unfortunately, you cannot see dialogue at this point of time. Unfortunately, I'm not a supporter of war.
Unfortunately, you cannot see
Yeah.
dialogue at this point, Mr. Basu.
Unfortunately, I'm saying, unfortunately, you cannot see dialogue at this
So you
point of
see a
time.
war
Yeah.
imminent.
Further escalations, maybe you call it war. Nobody can judge that. Even being in New Delhi, the decisions are being at this point of time. We are also under restrictions to even comment on certain things, but there will be further escalations.